July 4, 2012. Beneath the pastoral quiet of the Franco-Swiss border, a machine of unprecedented scale breathed with a cold, rhythmic hum. This was the Large Hadron Collider, a ring of steel and superconducting magnets 27 kilometers in circumference, buried deep within the dark Earth. It was not merely a tool of human curiosity, but a diagnostic probe into the very marrow of existence. On this day, the air within the auditorium at the European Organisation for Nuclear Research was thick with attention that transcended the simple desire for discovery. The assembled minds were not looking for a miracle. They were looking for a confirmation of the blueprint. They were looking for the gear that allowed the entire mechanical apparatus of the cosmos to function. For decades, the mathematical frameworks that governed the subatomic realm had pointed toward a missing component, a ghost in the machine that granted mass to the fundamental building blocks of reality. Without this component, the universe would be a frantic, weightless spray of light travelling at the absolute limit of speed, never slowing enough to form atoms, stars, or the chemical complexities of life. This ghost was the Higgs boson. When the data finally coalesced on the monitors, showing a clear and unmistakable peak at 125.1 giga-electron-volts, the room erupted. There were tears and applause, a collective sigh of relief that reached across the planet. To the human observers, it was a triumph of the spirit, but to the universe, this was merely a diagnostic report. We had finally looked at the master gauge of the cosmic engine, and for the first time, we saw that the machine was flawed. To understand the weight of this discovery, one must look past the celebration and into the cold, mathematical certainty of the number itself. 125.1. This specific mass for the Higgs boson was not a random coordinate. In the pitiless logic of physics, this value suggests that the field which permeates every corner of the void is not in its most stable state. The Higgs field is the invisible fluid that fills the abyss, a primordial ocean in which all particles must swim. It is the mechanism that gives the universe its texture and its resistance. However, the data gathered on that July morning revealed that this field is in a state of metastability. It is a false vacuum. Imagine a grand, intricate machine that has been running for 13.8 billion years. To the fleeting lives of biological entities, this machine appears eternal and unchanging. We have spent our brief epoch believing that the laws of physics are a solid foundation, a bedrock upon which the history of the cosmos is written. But the discovery of the Higgs boson suggests that we are living on a precarious ledge. The universe is like a heavy piston that has been caught on a rusted latch halfway through its stroke. It is balanced, yes, but it is not at rest. It is a system under immense silent pressure, vibrating at a frequency that is subtly, dangerously wrong. This is the concept of the Black Swan of cosmology. We looked into the heart of the mechanism and found a structural failure that has been present since the first picosecond of the primordial expansion. The machine is not broken yet, but it is stuck in a state of false stability. The energy density of the vacuum is not at its absolute minimum. There is a lower state, a more stable configuration that the universe prefers to be in, and the laws of quantum mechanics dictate that eventually, the machine will find a way to reach it. This is not a matter of if, but a matter of inexorable probability. When the Higgs boson was confirmed, the scientific community realized that the safety we feel is an illusion born of our microscopic scale. We are inhabitants of a factory floor that is waiting for a single spark to ignite a transformation. If a bubble of this lower energy state, a true vacuum, were to form anywhere in the vast tapestry of the cosmos, it would begin to expand. This bubble would not move like a storm or a wave. It would move at the speed of light, an invisible wall of total architectural rewriting. As this sphere of oblivion grows, it would unravel the very laws of physics that hold our atoms together. The Higgs field inside the bubble would have a different value, a different strength. In an instant, the electromagnetic force would cease to function as we know it. The strong nuclear force would fail. The atoms in your body, the stars in the sky, and the very fabric of the space between them would be incinerated, not by heat, but by a fundamental change in the rules of reality. The universe would not end with a bang or a whimper, but with a silent, cold transition. The machine would simply click into its next gear, and everything we have ever known would be erased from the record of existence. There would be no remnant, no ash, no memory. The void would remain, but it would be a different kind of void, governed by a different symphony of forces. This is the catastrophe hidden within the mass of the Higgs boson. The 125.1 giga-electronvolts we measured on July 4, 2012 was the signature of a ticking clock. We have spent eons as sentinels of a world we thought was solid. We built civilizations, mapped the stars, and peered into the deep past, all while the foundation of our house was resting on a hair trigger. The Large Hadron Collider did not just find a particle. It found the expiration date of the cosmos. It confirmed that the universe is an indifferent mechanism, a ruthless machine that does not care for the biological sparks that have briefly flickered within its gears. We are the accidental inhabitants of a transition state. This realization brings a profound sense of melancholic awe. We are the only part of the machine that has become aware of the machine's flaw. Through our instruments and our mathematics, we have transcended the limits of our sensory perception to glimpse the inexorable decay that awaits the whole of creation. The abyss is not just a place between the stars, it is the state toward which the entire universe is leaning. Every moment of our history, every epoch of stellar birth and planetary formation has taken place within this fragile window of metastability. We are the witness to a cosmic glitch, a temporary reprieve in a process of entropy that will eventually devour everything. As we stand at this coordinate in time, 10 billion years after the formation of the first heavy elements and 13.8 billion years after the initial ignition, we must recognize the scale of the void. The discovery at the edge of reason was not a door opening to a brighter future, but a window looking out onto the silent, eternal mechanism of our own unravelling. The gears are turning, the pressure is mounting, and deep within the quantum fabric of the abyss, the machine is preparing to shift. This is the prologue to the end of everything. This is the moment we learned that the peace of the stars is merely the silence of a failing engine before it finally stops. This is the discovery of our own cosmic obsolescence. The machine is indifferent to our fear, but for one brief moment we saw the blueprints, and we knew the truth. We are living in the shadow of a catastrophe that was written into the code of the universe at the moment of its birth. We are the observers of the falling leaf, unaware that the entire forest is made of glass, waiting for the first crack to appear. For 13,800,000,000 years, the factory of the cosmos has hummed in the absolute darkness, operating with a precision that defies human imagination. It is an automated masterpiece of staggering complexity, a mechanism so vast that its boundaries lie far beyond the reach of our most sensitive instruments. This is the great engine of existence, a machine that has never once faltered, never once hesitated, and never once required the intervention of a creator or a witness. To our eyes, this staggering duration of performance feels like a guarantee. We look back across the eons and see a record of unbroken reliability, and in our pride, we have mistaken this mechanical consistency for a cosmic contract. We have assumed that because the sun rose today, it is bound by some moral or universal law to rise forever. We have convinced ourselves that the laws of physics are not merely observations of a current state, but a promise of future security. Consider the pistons of expansion. Since the first moment of ignition, the very fabric of space has been stretching, pushing the galaxies apart with a rhythmic and inexorable force. It is the steady breath of a machine that knows no fatigue. Alongside this expansion, the gears of gravity grind with silent, lethal efficiency. They pull the primordial gases into the hearts of nebulas, crushing atoms together until they ignite into the fury of stars. This process has repeated trillions upon trillions of times, an assembly line of light and heat that has populated the void with billions of galaxies. From our perspective, tucked away on a fragile sphere of silicate and iron, this routine appears as a majestic symphony. We hear the music of the spheres and believe it was composed for us. But the machine does not hear the music. It only follows the blueprints of its own internal logic, a cold and mathematical program that has been running since the dawn of time. We are the latecomers to this automated factory. If the history of the universe were condensed into a single year, the entire span of human civilization would occupy only the final seconds before midnight, on the 31st of December. We have existed for a mere heartbeat within a cycle that has lasted for billions of years. This is the scale paradox that defines our condition. We are tiny, fleeting sparks of awareness trying to comprehend an engine that was already ancient before the first heavy elements were forged in the hearts of dying suns. Because we have only known the machine in its stable state, we assume that stability is its fundamental nature. We see the gears turning and the pistons firing, and we find comfort in their regularity. We call these observations the laws of nature, and we build our lives, our religions, and our sciences upon the foundation of their permanence. Yet, this reliability is a deception. It is the quiet of a long afternoon before a storm that has been brewing for centuries. The engine has run without error for 13,800,000,000 years, not because it is eternal, but because it is remarkably efficient at maintaining its current equilibrium. We have spent our brief tenure as sentinels of this reality, mapping the positions of the stars and calculating the trajectories of the planets, all while assuming that the rules of the game are fixed. We treat the speed of a light, the strength of electromagnetism, and the mass of the Higgs boson as fundamental constants, the unshakable pillars of the temple of existence. We do not stop to consider that these values might simply be the current settings on a control panel that we cannot see. The machine is indifferent to the biological remnants that have gathered in the dust of its gears. To the cosmos, a human life is no more significant than the decay of a single radioactive isotope. We are the accidental byproduct of a routine that was never intended to produce us. The gears of gravity did not grind to create a home for life. They ground because that is what gravity does. The pistons of expansion do not push the universe outward to provide room for our dreams. They push because the energy density of the vacuum demands it. We have projected our own need for meaning onto a mechanism that is defined by its lack of it. This is the lonely truth of our existence. We are the witnesses to a process that does not require an audience. As we peer deeper into the abyss, we begin to realize that the history of the universe is not a story of progress or purpose, but a chronicle of a machine performing its function. For billions of years, the stars have converted hydrogen into helium, then helium into carbon, and carbon into the heavier elements that make up our bones and our technology. This is the cosmic metabolism, a process of transformation that consumes the primordial fuel of the Big Bang to produce the cold, dead ash of the future. The light we see in the night sky is the exhaust of this great engine, the radiant waste of a system that is slowly but surely running toward its own inevitable shutdown. Entropy is the ultimate law, the silent worker in the factory that eventually dismantles every machine it helps to build. Every epoch that has passed since the initial ignition has been a testament to the inexorable power of this routine. The formation of the first stars, the collision of infant galaxies, the birth of solar systems from the wreckage of supernova. These are the milestones of a factory that operates on a scale of time and space that renders the human experience invisible. We inhabit a tiny bubble of metastable peace within a much larger and more violent mechanism. Our history is a brief footnote in a manual of operations that spans the infinite. The peace we feel when we look at the stars is not a sign of the universe's benevolence, but a reflection of the sheer distance between us and the catastrophic forces that govern the void. We have mistaken the silence of the engine for the safety of the world. We have walked through the halls of this ancient factory, marvelling at its architecture and assuming that it was built to last forever. But every machine has a limit. Every system has a point of failure. The very consistency that we rely upon, the unchanging nature of the laws of physics, is the very thing that hides the coming transition. The gears are worn, the pressure is building, and the routine that has defined the last 13,800,000,000 years is nearing its conclusion. The deceptive safety of the laws of physics is the greatest illusion in the history of the cosmos. It has allowed us to flourish, to think, and to love, all while the foundation of our reality was slowly eroding toward a tipping point. We are the generation that has finally looked under the hood of the machine. Through our mathematics and our particle accelerators, we have caught a glimpse of the blueprints. We have seen that the current state of the vacuum is not the lowest possible energy state. We have realized that the engine is not running in its final gear. There is another setting, a more stable configuration, and the transition to that state would mean the immediate and total dissolution of everything we know. The routine is not a guarantee. It is a stay of execution. The pistons will not pump forever. The gears will eventually slip. And when they do, the entire tapestry of the universe will unravel in an instant, leaving no remnant of the billions of years of routine that preceded it. This is the melancholic optimism of the cosmic narrator. We have been granted a brief moment of awareness in an indifferent universe. We have been allowed to see the machine in its prime, to marvel at its complexity, and to understand the mechanisms of our own eventual oblivion. The void is vast, and the abyss is deep, but for a few thousand years, a collection of sentient atoms on a small blue planet managed to decipher the code of the engine. We have known the routine, and in doing so we have transcended the machine's indifference. The engine may be ruthless, and the transition may be inevitable, but for this brief epoch the symphony was heard. The gears continue to turn, the pistons continue to fire, and the factory hums on, oblivious to the fact that its most curious inhabitants have finally figured out how it all ends. In the year 2007, a philosopher of uncertainty named Nassim Taleb gifted the world a metaphor that would forever alter our perception of the unexpected. He spoke of the Black Swan, an event so rare, so impactful, and so impossible to predict based on the past that its arrival shatters every existing model of reality. We look at 1,000 white swans and conclude, with the arrogance of the observer, that all swans must be white. We look at 13,800,000,000 years of cosmic stability and conclude, with the same misplaced confidence, that the laws of physics are an unalterable bedrock. But the Black Swan does not care for our observations. It is an inherent property of complex systems, a silent variable hidden deep within the logic of the machine, waiting for the precise moment when the gears align to trigger its release. This is the logic of the rare event, and when we translate this philosophy into the language of the vacuum, the implications are terrifying. We have spent the entirety of human history believing that the universe is a stable stage upon which the drama of life unfolds. We have built our cathedrals, our particle accelerators, and our dreams upon the assumption that the fundamental fields of the cosmos are in their final, most tranquil state. But the mathematics of the modern epoch suggest a different reality. They suggest that we are living in a false vacuum, a temporary plateau in the energy landscape of the cosmos. We are like a ball that has come to rest on a high ledge, mistakenly believing it has reached the ground. The ledge is wide, and we have lived upon it for eons, but beneath us lies an abyss of lower energy, a deeper state of the vacuum that remains unexplored and hungry. The machine that governs our reality does not operate on the scale of human probability. It does not consider a 1 in a billion chance to be a small risk. To an eternal mechanism, a probability of 1 in a quadrillion is not a fluke. It is a mathematical certainty waiting for its turn on the timeline. Over the course of a human life, the chance of the vacuum undergoing a phase transition is effectively zero. But the universe is not a human life. It is an ancient factory that has been running for billions of years and will continue for trillions more. In the infinite expanse of time, every potentiality becomes an inevitability. Every rare event, no matter how catastrophic, is merely a line of code waiting for its execution. The Black Swan of physics is not a possibility. It is a scheduled update to the operating system of the cosmos, one that will overwrite everything that came before it. We must envision the universe not as a collection of things, but as a system of states. The current state, which we perceive as the eternal laws of nature, is merely one configuration among many. In the same way that water can exist as ice, liquid, or steam, the vacuum itself can undergo a transition. If a single point in space were to tunnel through the energy barrier into the true vacuum, it would ignite a catastrophe that no sentinel could foresee. A bubble of the new state would expand at the speed of a light, an inexorable wall of change that would devour the existing tapestry of the universe. In its wake, the very particles that make up our bodies would cease to exist. The electromagnetic force would unravel, the strong nuclear force would fail, and the chemistry of life would become a physical impossibility. There would be no remnant of our existence, no ruins for future civilizations to find, for the very laws that allowed us to be would be rewritten in an instant. This transition is the ultimate Black Swan. It is an event for which there is no precedent in our data. Every second that the universe has existed in its current state is used by us as evidence that it will continue to do so. But this is the fallacy of the turkey before Thanksgiving. The bird is fed every day for 1,000 days, and with each passing day, its confidence in the benevolence of the farmer grows. From the perspective of the turkey, the 1,000th day is the safest day of all, but to the farmer, that day is the appointment with the blade. We are the inhabitants of a cosmic farm, mistaking the routine of the machine for the safety of the world. We have interpreted the silence of the void as a sign of peace, when it is merely the quiet before the mechanism shifts its gears. The ruthlessness of this machine is found in its indifference to the complexity it has created. The symphony of the stars, the intricate dance of biological evolution, and the collective memory of 1,000 civilizations are all subordinate to the underlying mathematics of the field. The machine does not value the beauty of the nebula or the consciousness of the observer. It only values the descent toward the lowest energy state. Entropy is the inexorable pressure that drives this engine, a silent hand pushing against the walls of our reality. We have flourished in a temporary pocket of stability, a brief epoch of calm within a much larger and more violent process of cosmic decay. Our history is not the story of the universe. It is a brief period of downtime between two much more fundamental states of being. As we look out into the vastness of the cosmos, we must confront the fact that the stability we cherish is a fragile illusion. The great architects of our reality, the fundamental constants of nature, are not fixed in stone. They are variables in a primordial equation that has yet to be solved. We are living in the middle of a calculation, and when the final sum is reached, the current variables will be discarded. The abyss is not just out there among the stars, it is woven into the very fabric of the room you're sitting in. It is beneath the floorboards of the vacuum, a silent pressure that has been building since the first second of time. There is a profound, melancholic optimism to be found in this realization. If the universe is a machine waiting for its next state, then our existence is a rare and precious error in the code. We are the witnesses of a specific configuration of the cosmos that will never be repeated. We have been granted the chance to see the white swans before the black one arrives to claim the horizon. To understand the mechanism is to transcend it, even if only for a moment. We have looked into the heart of the engine and deciphered the logic of our own eventual oblivion. We have recognized that the tapestry will one day unravel, and in that recognition, we have given meaning to the brief time we have spent within its threads. The eternal silence of these infinite spaces does not frighten us, once we accept that they are part of a larger, colder mechanism. We are the products of a system that is destined to change, and though that change will result in our total erasure, it is also the very thing that allowed us to begin. The same laws that will eventually devour the stars are the ones that ignited them. The same vacuum that will one day decay is the one that birthed the primordial fireball. We are part of a grand, indifferent symphony, and though the music will eventually stop, we have been here to hear the notes. The gears continue to turn, the code continues to run, and the Black Swan swims somewhere in the depths of the void, waiting for the exact moment to emerge and bring the current epoch to its silent, inevitable conclusion. To understand the true nature of this ruthless machine, we must look at the foundation upon which the entire edifice of reality is built. In the year 2012, after decades of searching, the inhabitants of this lonely planet uncovered a fundamental truth hidden within the subatomic substrate. They discovered a field that permeates every corner of the abyss, an invisible presence that grants substance to the void. This is the Higgs field, a primordial sea that slows the passage of particles, allowing them to gather weight and form the stars, the planets, and the very cells of our bodies. Without this field, the universe would be a frantic, weightless rush of light, an eternal explosion with no center and no end. But in finding the architect of our mass, we also discovered a fatal flaw in the cosmic hardware. The data gathered from the experiments of 2012 revealed two specific numbers that define the stability of our epoch. These are not merely measurements, they are the coordinates of our eventual doom. The mass of the Higgs boson was found to be approximately 125.1 gigaelectron volts. while the mass of its partner in this cosmic calculation, the top quark, was measured at approximately 172.76 gigaelectronvolts. To the uninitiated, these figures are dry and meaningless, but within the cold logic of the cosmic engine, they describe a state of terrifying precarity. When these two values are placed upon the scales of existence, the balance does not tip toward eternal stability. Instead, it points toward a condition known as metastability. Imagine a vast, silent factory that has been running for billions of years. This factory is our universe, and its floor is the vacuum, the state of lowest possible energy. We have always assumed that we are standing on the solid ground of this factory, the absolute bottom of reality. But the measurements of 125.1 and 172.76 suggest something far more unsettling. We are not on the ground floor, we are standing on a false floor, a high ledge deep within the machine. Our reality is a ball that has been placed upon this ledge, held there by a temporary fluke of cosmic history. We are living in a false vacuum, a state of being that appears stable, only because we have not yet seen the ledge give way. This is the Higgs field trap. The machine is not at rest, it is merely paused. The ball on the ledge is currently stationary, but it is possessed by an inexorable desire to find the true floor. In the language of the quantum world, there is always a chance that the ball will not need to be pushed. It can simply vanish from the ledge and reappear on the floor below through a process of tunneling, a ghost-like traversal of the barriers of probability. If this were to happen at any point in the vastness of the cosmos, the result would be a catastrophe of absolute proportions. The moment the ball touches the true floor, the laws of the machine would be rewritten in an instant. A bubble of true vacuum would begin to expand outward from the point of failure at the speed of light. This is the ultimate predator, a silent wave of oblivion that would devour everything in its path. As the bubble expands, it would fundamentally alter the Higgs field itself. The particles that make up our world would lose their current properties. Atoms would cease to hold together. The very chemistry of life would become impossible, as the fundamental forces that govern the dance of electrons are recalibrated by the new state of the vacuum. There would be no warning, no sentinel would cry out from the darkness. One moment, the stars are shining in their silent majesty, the next they are unravelled. Their matter dissolved into a new and alien configuration of the cosmos. This transition is the ultimate hardware flaw, a remnant of the primordial chaos that birthed the universe. It suggests that the Big Bang was not a final act of creation, but merely the first step in a long descent toward a state of true equilibrium that we have yet to reach. We are the inhabitants of the transition period, living in the brief silence between the ignition of the engine and its eventual collapse into its final gear. The ruthless machine does not care that it has spent 13,800,000,000 years building the tapestry of the galaxies. If the mathematics of the field demand a lower state, the machine will discard the current epoch without a second thought. The complexity of human thought, the vastness of our history, and the beauty of the nebulae are all secondary to the pressure of the vacuum. We must confront the reality that our entire existence is a metastable fluke. The abyss is not just the empty space between the galaxies, it is the potential energy stored in the very field that gives us weight. We are supported by a false floor, a temporary configuration of energy that could, in theory, decay at any second. This is the cold comfort of the cosmic narrator, to know that the machine is indifferent to its own destruction. The universe is not a garden designed for our flourishing. It is a mechanism of immense power and terrifying fragility. The same field that ignited the stars also holds the key to their erasure. Yet, there is a strange majesty in this precarious state. To know that the vacuum is false is to understand the true value of the present. We are living in the golden hour of the cosmos, a time when the constants of nature are tuned to allow the emergence of complexity and consciousness. We are the witnesses of the ledge, the observers of a state of being that is inherently temporary. The fact that the ball has remained on the ledge for nearly 14 billion years is a testament to the vastness of the scales involved. The machine may be ruthless, and its laws may be inexorable, but it has granted us an eon of calm in which to wonder at its workings. As we look at the numbers, 125.1 and 172.76, We are looking at the expiration date of the universe written in the language of energy. We are seeing the mechanism of our own end, and in doing so, we are transcending the blind movements of the particles. We have deciphered the code of the trap. We know that the floor is false and that the void is waiting to reclaim the energy it has lent to the world of form. The sentinel of the false vacuum stands silent, watching the clock of the cosmos tick toward a zero that we can calculate but never truly comprehend. In the end, the machine will find its true flaw, and the symphony will fall silent as the tapestry unravels into the eternal dark of a new, stable, and lifeless reality. For now, however, the gears continue to turn, and we remain suspended on the ledge, a brief and beautiful error in the cold logic of the vacuum. In the year 1980, two sentinels of the intellect, Sidney Coleman and Frank DeLucia, peered into the mathematical abyss and discovered that the universe possesses a built-in mechanism for its own erasure. They were not looking for a catastrophe, but in the cold, precise language of quantum field theory, they found a self-destruct sequence that had been written into the foundations of reality since the primordial dawn. This was the birth of the Coleman-DeLucia mechanism, a proof that our entire cosmos is not a permanent monument, but a temporary state of being, waiting for a single, silent command to unravel. To understand this discovery is to move beyond the comfort of the stars and to face the ruthless logic of the machine. The machine does not seek to destroy, it seeks only to settle. It seeks the lowest possible state of energy, the ultimate equilibrium, and if our existence stands in the way of that efficiency, the machine will simply step over us. Imagine, if you will, a vast tank of liquid, held under immense pressure and heated far beyond its boiling point. In this unnatural state, the liquid remains a fluid, trapped in a phase that is essentially a lie. It is what physicists call metastable. It appears stable, it behaves as if it is permanent, but it is actually a coiled spring, an ocean of potential energy waiting for a reason to release. This is the state of our universe. The fields that define our reality, the very forces that hold your atoms together and light the suns, are like that pressurized liquid. We are living in a false vacuum, a temporary pocket of existence that has not yet found its true flaw. Coleman and DeLucia showed that this state cannot last forever. Somewhere in the infinite reach of the void, a tiny fluctuation, a microscopic ripple in the fabric of space will eventually occur. This is the moment of nucleation. Nucleation is the birth of the end. In our pressurized tank, it is the moment a single bubble of steam forms. That bubble represents the true vacuum, a state of lower energy, a more efficient way for the universe to exist. In the world of the everyday, a bubble in a pot of water rises and pops, a harmless transition. But in the scale of the cosmos, the bubble of the true vacuum is an inexorable wall of change. Because the true vacuum is more stable than the false vacuum surrounding it, the bubble does not collapse. Instead, it expands. It pushes outward, driven by the massive release of energy as the space around it realizes it has been living a lie. This bubble expands at the speed of light, a spherical curtain of oblivion that moves faster than any warning could ever travel. The machine is not angry. It is merely shifting gears. When a car shifts from a high gear to a low gear to find more torque, it does not care about the friction in the engine or the heat generated by the transition. It is simply moving toward a more functional state. The Coleman-DeLucia mechanism is the universe shifting into its final, most efficient gear. To the inhabitants of the false vacuum, this shift is a catastrophe of absolute proportions. As the wall of the bubble passes through a galaxy, the laws of physics inside that bubble are rewritten in an instant. The constants of nature, the strength of gravity, the charge of the electron, the mass of the Higgs boson, all vanish and are replaced by new values. The chemistry that allows life to exist becomes impossible. The nuclear forces that hold the hearts of stars together are extinguished. In an eye blink, the tapestry of the cosmos is shredded, and the energy that once formed planets and people is recycled into the silent, cold void of the true vacuum. This is the ruthlessness of the mechanism. It requires no permission and offers no appeal. Sidney Coleman and Frank DeLucia described this as the ultimate ecological catastrophe. We often worry about the death of a star or the collision of galaxies, but those are merely movements within the existing framework of the machine. The nucleation of the void is the destruction of the framework itself. It is the realization that the stage upon which the entire drama of history has been played is itself a temporary construction. We have spent 13,800,000,000 years building civilizations and contemplating the heavens, unaware that the floor beneath us is a false one, a shelf of energy that is destined to give way. The beauty of the Coleman-de Lucia proof lies in its terrifying simplicity. It suggests that the universe is not a garden designed for the preservation of complexity, but a system that is constantly trying to find its way back to the silence of the abyss. The complexity we see around us, the swirling nebulae, the intricate patterns of neural networks, the vast structures of galaxy filaments, is all a byproduct of the fact that the machine hasn't finished its work yet. We are the sparks thrown off by an engine that is still cooling down. The nucleation of the true vacuum is the moment the cooling is complete. It is the arrival of a stability so total that no further change is possible. It is the eternal dark. As we contemplate this, we must adopt the tone of the cosmic narrator, one who watches the eons pass with a sense of melancholic optimism. There is a strange comfort in knowing the exact nature of the end. It strips away the trivialities of our daily struggles and reminds us of our position as witnesses. We are the only part of the machine that has turned around to look at the blueprints. We have identified the self-destruct sequence. We have seen the potential for the void to reclaim the cosmos, and yet, here we are. The bubble has not yet formed. The liquid has not yet boiled. We are living in the pause between the thought and the action. The mechanism described in 1980 remains one of the most sobering realizations in the history of science. It tells us that the universe is not obligated to be stable. It tells us that the void is not merely empty space, but a hungry state of being that wants to expand. The vacuum is not a nothingness, it is a potentiality. When the nucleation begins, it will be the most significant event in the history of the cosmos, and yet it will be witnessed by no one, for to witness it is to be consumed by it. There will be no remnant, no ruins, no ghosts of the old world left behind. There will only be the new, stable, and perfectly silent reality of the true vacuum, a state where the entropy that has plagued our epoch is finally satisfied. The sentinel of the false vacuum stands and waits. Every second that passes is a miracle of metastability. Every breath we take is a defiance of the inevitable transition toward a lower energy state. We are the inhabitants of the transition, the dwellers in the brief period of inefficiency that the machine allows before it finds its final form. Coleman and de Lucia did not just write a paper, they wrote the final chapter of the cosmic story, a chapter that ends not with a bang or a whimper, but with the silent light-speed arrival of a more perfect void. We are the witnesses of the ledge, looking out into the abyss and recognizing that the abyss is not just out there among the stars, it is the very ground we stand on, waiting for the moment it is called to rise and devour the symphony of the stars. In the end, the machine will win, and the tapestry will be unravelled into a single eternal thread of perfect, cold equilibrium. This transition is not a descent into chaos, but the imposition of a more fundamental order. When the nucleation begins, the resulting bubble of true vacuum expands outward at the speed of light, creating a boundary that is as absolute as it is invisible. This is the speed of a light horizon, a limit beyond which no information can travel. Because the shell of this cosmic catastrophe moves at the ultimate speed of causality, there is no warning, there is no light that can outrun the change, no gravitational ripple that can announce the coming of the void. One moment, a star burns with the fusion of 10 billion years. The next, it is overwritten. To an observer standing on a planet circling that star, there would be no flash, no sound, and no time to register the end of their world. The bubble does not arrive like a storm, it arrives like the final period at the end of a sentence that has been spoken for eons. This is the geometry of ruin. In our current epoch, the universe operates on a set of physical laws that allow for complexity to flourish. These laws are the software of the cosmos, written into the very fabric of the vacuum we inhabit. But this vacuum is a false one. a state of higher energy that has persisted only because it lacked the spark to ignite its decay. When that spark finally occurs, the hardware of the universe is not destroyed, it is repurposed. The underlying fields that dictate how particles interact are instantly reconfigured into a more stable, lower energy state. It is a cosmic reset, a reformatting of the fundamental grid. As the bubble wall sweeps through a solar system, it does not merely push matter aside, it unmasks the illusion of the old world. The catastrophe begins at the subatomic level, where the very mechanism of mass and identity is unravelled. In the world we know, electrons are bound to nuclei by the inexorable pull of electromagnetism, dancing in precise shells that allow for the existence of atoms. Chemistry is the language of this dance, a complex symphony of shared electrons and molecular bonds that gives rise to the tapestry of life. But as the true vacuum takes hold, the constants of nature are rewritten. The strength of the forces that hold the world together is altered beyond recognition. In an instant, the electrons decouple from their nuclei. They are no longer part of an atomic structure. They are ghosts in a machine that no longer supports their existence. Atoms become impossible. The intricate architecture of carbon, oxygen, and gold, the primordial elements forged in the hearts of dying stars, simply ceases to be. Without atoms, there is no chemistry. Without chemistry, there is no biology. The intricate neural networks that once carried the thoughts of 1 billion civilizations are dissolved, not because they were attacked, but because the medium in which they existed has been rendered obsolete. This is the ultimate silence. It is not the silence of an empty room, but the silence of a universe where the capacity for sound has been removed. In the wake of the bubble wall, the cosmos is not filled with debris or ruins. There are no remnants of the old epoch left behind to tell the tale. There is only the true vacuum, a vast, cold, and perfectly stable void that has reclaimed the energy once borrowed by the stars. The process is one of absolute efficiency. The ruthless machine of the universe has no room for sentiment or the preservation of historical artifacts. The human witness, who once looked up at the stars and wondered about their origin, is entirely irrelevant to this transition. Our thoughts, our triumphs, and our tragedies were all built upon a foundation that was always meant to be temporary. We were the dwellers in a metastable house, unaware that the floor beneath us was a thin sheet of glass suspended over an abyss. When the glass breaks, the fall is instantaneous. The light that once travelled across the cosmos for billions of years is swallowed by the new reality, its energy absorbed into the dark equilibrium of the lower state. This is the moment the machine resets. The false vacuum was a state of high entropy, a chaotic and inefficient arrangement of energy that allowed for the brief, bright spark of the stars. The true vacuum is the fulfillment of the cosmic design, a state where the tension is finally released and the system reaches its lowest possible energy. It is a perfection that we cannot comprehend because our very existence is an expression of imperfection. We are the noise in the signal, the friction in the gears. When the friction is removed, the machine runs silently and eternally. As the bubble expands, it devours the galaxy filaments and the great voids between them. It ignores the boundaries of empires and the distances between suns. 100,000 light-years of a galaxy's history are erased in the same motion that clears a single micrometer of dust. The catastrophe is total, but it's also a form of transcendence. The universe is shedding its heavy, complex skin to reveal a primordial state of being that is immune to further change. This is the end of the struggle. The entropy that has driven the evolution of the cosmos toward decay is finally satisfied. There is no more room for heat, no more room for light, and no more room for the relentless passage of time. In this new epoch, the sentinel of the void stands watch over a reality that is perfectly uniform. The stars do not ignite here. The dark matter does not clump. The very concept of a particle may no longer apply in the way we understand it. It is a world of pure potential that will never be realized, a canvas that has been wiped clean and will never again be painted upon. We are the witnesses of the transition, but we are also the victims of it. Our role was to observe the beauty of the false state, to record the brief flickering of the light before the arrival of the inexorable dark. As we imagine the bubble wall racing across the abyss, we must recognize that this is not a tragedy in the cosmic sense. It is merely the completion of a cycle. The universe is returning to the silence from which it emerged, a silence that is more stable and more enduring than the brief scream of the Big Bang. The tapestry of space and time is being unravelled thread by thread, and in its place, there is only the single, eternal line of the true vacuum. The geometry of ruin is, in truth, the geometry of peace. The machine has found its final form, and in that form there is no more room for the suffering, the beauty, or the curiosity of the witness. There is only the void, vast and silent, beneath a sky that will never again hold a star. Yet, long before the ultimate descent into the true vacuum, the machine underwent a subtle, invisible revolution. To understand our place in the tapestry of time, we must look back to the 10 billion year coordinate. This was the moment of the Great Transition, an epoch that redefined the destiny of every star and every atom. For the first several billion years of existence, the cosmos was a dense, clotted engine of matter. Gravity was the master of the gears. It pulled the primordial gases into the first suns and forged the great rotating disks of the galaxies. In this era, the universe was like a heavy locomotive labouring uphill, its momentum slowed by the mutual attraction of everything within it. The expansion of space continued, but it was a decelerating force tempered by the weight of billions of trillions of solar masses. We lived in a universe of substances, of things that could be touched, weighed, and measured. But the machine possesses an internal logic that remains hidden until a specific threshold is crossed. Within the very fabric of the void, there exists a ghost in the mechanism. This is the energy of the vacuum, a pressure so faint and so thin that for eons it was drowned out by the roar of the stars. However, as the volume of the cosmos increased, the density of matter began to thin. The great filaments of the cosmic web were stretched further apart, and the gravitational tether that held the expansion in check began to fray. At the 10 billion year mark, the density of matter fell below a critical value. The balance tipped. The machine shifted its internal gears, moving from the heavy, clutched teeth of matter dominance to the frictionless, accelerating drive of the vacuum. This was the moment the dark energy took control. It was not a violent explosion or a sudden catastrophe, but a silent takeover. The vacuum began to push back against the gravity of the galaxies with an inexorable and growing strength. Imagine a grand mechanical clock where the weights have been removed and replaced by a coiled spring of infinite tension. Suddenly, the steady, rhythmic slowing of the cosmos ceased. The engine began to race. The expansion of the universe, once a dying echo of the Big Bang, was reignited by the repulsive pressure of empty space itself. This transition marked the end of the youthful, creative phase of the universe and the beginning of its long, lonely slide into the abyss. We exist today at the coordinate of 13.8 billion years. We are the inhabitants of the transition's immediate aftermath. In the grand chronology of the cosmos, we are standing on the threshold between two vastly different realities. If we look back 5 billion years, we see a universe that was still vibrant and interconnected, where the distance between galaxy clusters was not yet insurmountable. If we look forward, we see the inevitable result of the vacuum's triumph. We are the witnesses to the final hour of the old machine before the new gears carry us beyond the horizon of visibility. The tension on the fabric of space-time has reached a limit that no longer permits the growth of large-scale structures. The great clusters of galaxies, the largest bound objects in the cosmos, have stopped growing. The machine has decided their final dimensions. From this point forward, the void between these islands of light will only grow wider and deeper. The dark energy does not merely push, it stretches the very stage upon which the play of existence is performed. It acts as a relentless sentinel, guarding the boundaries of the observable world and slowly drawing the curtain closed. At 13.8 billion years, the sky is still filled with the remnants of the primordial fire. We can still see the light of distant quasars and the faint glow of the cosmic microwave background. But this is a fleeting privilege. The engine of the vacuum is accelerating the distant galaxies away from us at speeds that will eventually transcend the velocity of light itself. One by one, the lights of the distant cosmos will wink out, not because the stars have died, but because the space between us and them is expanding so fast that their light can no longer bridge the abyss. The tapestry is being unravelled from the edges inward, the Great Transition reveals a universe that is a ruthless machine of entropy. It is a system designed to dissipate energy and isolate matter. The epoch of 10 billion years was the point of no return, the moment the universe decided to become a desert rather than a garden. We are living in the golden hour, the brief period where the gears of the past and the gears of the future overlap. We see a sky full of stars and a universe that seems full of potential, but the internal logic of the mechanism has already been set. The vacuum is the ultimate victor. It requires no fuel, it suffers no decay, and it never tires. It is the purest expression of the cosmic design, a force that will continue to drive the expansion until the last atom is separated from its neighbour by distances that defy the human imagination. As the machine shifts into its final gear, we must contemplate our role as the temporary occupants of this 13.8 billion year coordinate. We are the noise generated by the friction of the old gears, a brief spark of complexity in a system that is moving toward absolute simplicity. The Great Transition was the universe's way of shedding its heavy armour of matter to reveal the cold, dark skeleton of the vacuum beneath. It is a silent revolution that has doomed the future to an eternal stillness, even as it provides us with the spectacular fading view of a cosmos in motion. The engine is running faster now, and as it does, the silence of the void grows ever louder, a reminder that the epoch of light was always meant to be a transient phase in the history of the eternal machine. Within this deepening silence, we encounter a paradox that challenges the very foundation of our understanding of time and stability. As the universe enters the long, slow descent into the era of maximum entropy, it ceases to be a place of action and becomes a realm of pure probability. To a human, a lifespan of 80 years is a significant journey. To the stars, 10 billion years is a complete cycle of birth and death. But to the cosmic machine, these durations are microscopic, mere flickers in a dark room that will remain dark for a duration that defies the ability of any biological mind to comprehend. This is the scale paradox, the realization that our entire history is but a brief pulse of noise against an infinite background of silence. In this infinite timeline, the steady, predictable decline of the cosmos is not the only outcome. There is another possibility, a cold and statistical reality that suggests the machine is prone to a specific kind of internal glitch. We must look into the heart of the vacuum itself. We have long perceived the void as an empty stage, but it is actually a primordial sea of energy, fluctuating at levels so small they usually vanish before they can be measured. However, as the eons stretch into numbers that we must write as one followed by hundreds of zeros, the laws of thermodynamics reveal their true, statistical nature. Entropy is not a law that forbids order. It is a law that describes the overwhelming probability of disorder. In a finite window of time, order is rare, but in an infinite sea of time, the impossible becomes a statistical certainty. This is the Boltzmann fluctuation, the moment when the random movements of the vacuum accidentally align to create a localized island of complexity in the heart of the abyss. Imagine a deck of cards shuffled by a machine for all eternity. For trillions of years, the cards are a chaotic mess, but eventually, by sheer chance, the machine will deal a perfect hand. Then it will deal that same hand again. If the machine continues forever, it will eventually recreate every possible sequence of cards that can exist. The universe is such a machine, and the vacuum is its deck. In the profound darkness of the far future, long after the last red dwarf has turned to a black cinder, and the last black hole has dissolved into a faint mist of radiation, the void will remain. It is a cold, indifferent sentinel, waiting in the stillness. Yet, because the timeline is infinite, a random fluctuation will eventually occur that is powerful enough to ignite a new spark. This is the Great Catastrophic Reset. It is a reality where a sudden, violent surge of energy emerges from the nothingness, not because of a grand design, but because the statistics of the infinite demand it. This fluctuation could take many forms. It could be the sudden appearance of a single conscious mind in the void, a lonely observer born from the chaos of thermal noise, only to vanish back into the oblivion a second later. Or more terrifyingly, it could be a fluctuation so vast that it resets the entire state of the local vacuum. This is the glitch that wipes the slate clean. The machine does not care for the complex structures it spent billions of years building. It does not mourn the loss of galaxies or the civilizations that once looked up at them with wonder. To the inexorable logic of the cosmos, a galaxy and a single atom are both merely temporary arrangements of energy that must eventually return to the mean. The scale of this process reveals the ultimate insignificance of the human epoch. We imagine our universe as a grand symphony, a carefully composed masterpiece of physics and biology. But in the context of the statistical reset, our entire history might be nothing more than a particularly large fluctuation in a much older, much darker system. We are the noise generated by a cosmic machine that has been running for a duration we cannot measure. Our primordial fire, the Big Bang itself, may not have been the beginning of everything, but simply the most recent and most violent reset in an eternal cycle of fluctuations. We are living inside a glitch that has lasted for 13.8 billion years, a brief moment of organization before the machine returns to its preferred state of absolute simplicity. The vacuum state is the finality that the universe seeks. It is the lowest possible energy level, a state of perfect frozen peace. But the mechanism of the universe is restless. Even in its most dormant phase, the potential for catastrophe remains. A statistical reset is more likely than a slow, peaceful decline because, in the infinite reach of time, the path of most resistance will eventually be travelled. The abyss does not just sit there, it vibrates with the ghost of every world that could possibly exist. As the entropy increases, the structures of the past unravel, turning into a thin, cold soup of particles. These remnants are the fuel for the next fluctuation. The tapestry of existence is not just being pulled apart, it is being recycled into the void, waiting for the moment when the random dance of the vacuum creates a new pattern. We find ourselves in a position of melancholic optimism. We are the witnesses to a period of stability that is, in the grandest sense, an anomaly. We are the product of a series of events that the machine will eventually erase. This is not a tragedy, but a realization of the majestic scale of the system we inhabit. The cold machine is not our enemy. It is the ground upon which we stand. It is the silent observer of our brief ignite. When the final vacuum state is reached, and the last remnants of our era have been devoured by the expansion of space, the machine will continue to hum in the darkness. It will wait through the eons, through durations that make the age of the stars seem like a single heartbeat. And then, as is the way of the infinite, the glitch will occur again. The primordial vacuum will heave, a new pocket of energy will burst forth, and the cycle will begin anew. The structures will grow, the stars will ignite, and perhaps, for another brief hour, another consciousness will arise to look out at the void and wonder if it is alone. They will not know of us. We will be buried under layers of statistical resets, lost in the oblivion of previous cycles. The machine does not preserve records. It only preserves the capacity for change. The inexorable march toward entropy is always accompanied by the silent potential for a new beginning. We are the temporary noise in an eternal silence, a beautiful, fragile remnant of a cosmic mechanism that is as creative as it is ruthless. The Great Transition was merely the preparation for this long, dark wait, where the only thing that truly survives is the mathematical certainty that, eventually, the void will speak again. This mechanical resonance is the only true language of the cosmos. To look into the deep field is not to witness a garden of light, but to peer into the heart of a colossal and unfeeling workshop. We have long sought a narrative in the stars, a reason for the brilliance and the dark, yet the vacuum offers no such consolation. It is a state of profound indifference. The universe does not harbour a grudge against life, nor does it cheer for its success. It simply persists through the application of its own internal logic, a series of equations that must be satisfied regardless of the cost in beauty or sentience. We are standing upon a threshold of understanding where the warmth of our ancient myths begins to fail us, replaced by the chilling realization that the vacuum is the default state of all things. It is the silent ocean upon which our entire reality is a mere ripple, destined to be smoothed over by the inexorable hand of entropy. Imagine, if you will, the entirety of a galaxy, hundreds of billions of stars, countless worlds, and the entire history of any civilization that may have risen within it. In the grand operation of the cosmic mechanism, this galaxy is nothing more than a stray spark cast off from a grinding wheel. It is a momentary flash of heat and light born from the friction of existence, a byproduct of a process so vast and ancient that the spark itself is an inconsequential accident. The grinding wheel is the fundamental law of the universe, the unyielding gears of physics and mathematics that turn without pause through the eons. This wheel does not exist to create sparks. The sparks are simply what happens when the gears of reality collide. They fly into the darkness, glowing with a desperate, fierce intensity, only to be devoured by the surrounding abyss within a fraction of a cosmic second. We are that spark. Our entire history, from the first primordial cell to the height of our technological achievements, is contained within that fleeting glow. We look at the light and see destiny, but the machine sees only a temporary expenditure of energy. The vacuum is the cold air of the workshop waiting to absorb the heat. There is no malice in this process, only the terrifying precision of a system that does not require a witness to function. The sentinel of the void is not a god or a consciousness, but the vacuum itself, an eternal observer that records nothing and remembers nothing. It is the ultimate blank slate, the silence that precedes the first breath and follows the final sigh. For centuries we have searched for a purpose hidden within the tapestry of the stars. We have projected our own desires and fears onto the constellations, hoping to find a reflection of ourselves in the vastness. But as we peel back the layers of the cosmic onion, we find only more layers of mathematical logic. The universe is not a story being told. It is a calculation being performed. It is a symphony of numbers where the notes are particles, and the rhythm is the expansion of space. This realization is the great catastrophe of our era, the loss of our central role in the drama of existence. We are not the protagonists of this journey. We are a footnote in a manual of operations, a brief ignite in a machine that has been running for billions of years before we arrived and will continue for trillions more after we are gone. The gears of this machine are massive and unyielding. They are the laws of thermodynamics, the curvature of space-time, and the fundamental constants that govern the behavior of every atom. These gears do not bend for our prayers, and they do not slow down for our achievements. They grind on, crushing the structures of the past to make room for the fluctuations of the future. The fragility of our civilization is laid bare when contrasted with these cosmic mechanisms. We have built our cities and our cultures on a foundation of shifting sand, unaware that the very ground we stand on is a remnant of a previous cycle of destruction. Every atom in our bodies was forged in the heart of a dying star, a violent event that was itself just another turn of the wheel. We are the debris of an older era, recycled and reassembled into a temporary form that feels, thinks, and wonders. This is the loneliness of the probe that drifts beyond the edge of our solar system, carrying a message that may never be read. It is a tiny piece of metal and glass sent into the abyss, a testament to our desire to be seen. But the abyss does not see. It only receives. The signal fades, the power dies, and the probe becomes another silent sentinel, a frozen artifact of a spark that has already begun to dim. This is the fate of all things within the grinding wheel. The stars will eventually exhaust their fuel, their light unravelling into the dark. The black holes will slowly evaporate through processes that take longer than the current age of the universe by a factor of trillions. The very fabric of space may eventually tear or decay, returning the entire system to the absolute simplicity of the vacuum. In this cold light, our search for meaning becomes an act of defiance. We are a part of the machine that has somehow become aware of the grinding. We are the heat of the spark that has turned its gaze back toward the wheel. This consciousness is a rare and beautiful anomaly, a glitch in the programming that allows for the concept of value in a value-neutral cosmos. We provide the only meaning the universe will ever have, even if that meaning is local, temporary, and ultimately doomed to be forgotten. The mathematical certainty of our end does not diminish the intensity of our glow while it lasts. We are the witness to the majesty of the machine, the only part of the system that can appreciate the scale of the abyss. As we move deeper into the epoch of our own understanding, we must learn to live with the melancholic optimism of the transient. We are here for a duration that is shorter than a heartbeat in the life of a star, Yet in that moment, we have unravelled the secrets of the cosmos. We have mapped the distant reaches of the void and measured the weight of the invisible. We have seen the gears turning and recognised them for what they are. The universe is a ruthless machine, but it is also a source of infinite wonder. The fact that such a machine can produce a spark capable of contemplating its own extinction is the most profound paradox of all. We must prepare for the final turn, the moment when the spark finally leaves the wheel and vanishes into the dark. The vacuum is waiting, silent and eternal, to reclaim the energy it lent us. Our cities will crumble, our records will fade, and the very memory of our existence will be devoured by the expansion of space. But for now, we continue to ignite. We continue to look out from our small, fragile world and marvel at the inexorable march of the eons. We are the noise in the silence, the light in the void, a brief and glorious rebellion against the indifference of the vacuum. The grinding wheel continues to turn, the sparks continue to fly, and for one brief shining moment, we are here to see it all. In the face of the infinite, that is enough. To be the witness is to carry a burden that the stars themselves cannot bear. For billions of years, the machinery of the cosmos turned in total silence, a sequence of causes and effects that had no one to name them. Gravity pulled, pressure mounted, and fusion ignited. But there was no mind to translate the heat into the concept of fire. There was no soul to find the light beautiful. The universe was a grand, intricate clockwork mechanism, operating in a basement with no windows and no observer. It was a masterpiece of physics performed for an empty theatre. But then, against every mathematical probability, the machine produced something unexpected. From the cooling embers of dead suns on a tiny fragment of dust, the atoms began to arrange themselves into a configuration that could feel the cold. We are that configuration. We are the moment the universe opened its eyes and found itself staring into the abyss. This is the essence of the existential pivot. We have spent the long eons of our development fearing the dark, looking up at the wheeling stars and feeling small, insignificant, and lost. We have looked for meaning in the movements of the planets and the geometry of the galaxies, hoping to find a reflection of our own empathy in the heart of the void. But the hard science of our era has revealed a different truth. The machine is indifferent. The laws of thermodynamics do not possess a moral compass, and the expansion of space does not pause for the passing of a civilization. The vacuum is not a hostile enemy. It is simply a vast, unfeeling state of being. Yet, in this realization, there is a profound and majestic liberation. We do not need the universe to love us. We do not need the abyss to acknowledge our presence, or for the stars to burn in our honour. The miracle is not that the universe provides us with meaning, but that we, a fragile and temporary remnant of a cosmic catastrophe, provide meaning to the universe. We have become the architects of significance. When we look through our telescopes at the distant glow of a nebula, we are not merely seeing a cloud of gas and dust. We are witnessing the birth of worlds through the lens of a conscious mind that understands the chemistry of the event. We have unravelled the blueprints. We have mapped the invisible scaffold of dark matter and traced the echoes of the primordial explosion back to the first fraction of a second. The machine may be vast, but we are the ones who have learned how it works. We have translated the silent movements of the spheres into the language of mathematics, and in doing so, we have performed an act of supreme defiance. In a system designed for entropy and decay, we have built structures of knowledge that transcend our biological limitations. We have observed the Black Swan, the impossible anomaly of consciousness, emerging from a sea of deterministic white noise. This is the triumph of the witness. Even if our tenure in this epoch is brief, even if the inexorable march of time eventually erases every trace of our cathedrals and our equations, the fact of our existence remains an eternal truth. The universe can never be as it was before we arrived. It has been seen, it has been measured, it has been felt. The cold machinery has been warmed, for one flickering moment, by the heat of our curiosity. We are the anomaly that allows the cosmos to contemplate its own majesty. Without the witness, the great attractor is just a mass, the supernova is just a release of energy, and the black hole is just a fold in the fabric of space. With the witness, these things become sublime. They become part of a story. They become a symphony. Consider the lonely probe once more, drifting into the absolute zero of the interstellar void. It is a piece of the machine, yes, but it is a piece that carries the mark of the witness. It is a vessel of intent. Even as its sensors fail and its frame is pitted by the micrometeors of 1 trillion years, it remains a sentinel of our defiance. It is a message sent into the oblivion, not because we expected an answer, but because we had to speak. We had to declare that we were here. We had to prove that the spark could look back at the fire. This is the melancholic optimism that defines our species. We accept that we are transient, that our cities will eventually fall into the sea, and our sun will eventually expand to devour the world that birthed us. But we do not let that end diminish the glory of the present. We are the only part of the system that can appreciate the scale of the tragedy, and that appreciation is, in itself, a victory. Our survival up to this point is a successful defiance of the odds. We have navigated the perils of our own nature and the catastrophes of a violent solar system to reach a point where we can finally see the mechanism for what it is. We stand on the precipice of an era where we may begin to spread our light to other stars, or we may find that our journey ends here, on this single, fragile sphere. Regardless of the outcome, the record of our observation is etched into the history of the cosmos. We are the heat in the cold, the signal in the static, the eyes of the machine. We have seen the gears turning and we have found them beautiful. In the long silence that will follow the eventual heat death of the universe, when the last star has flickered out and the last black hole has evaporated into nothingness, there will be no one left to remember us. The void will be absolute and the darkness will be eternal. But the vacuum cannot take away the fact that, for a brief window of time, the universe was aware. It cannot undo the moment when a collection of atoms gathered on a blue planet and decided to name the constellations. We have been the witness to the greatest show in existence. We have understood the blueprints of the abyss. We have looked into the heart of the ruthless machine and we did not blink. In the face of the infinite, in the shadow of the inexorable eons, that is enough. We have transcended the limitations of our origin to become the consciousness of the cosmos. We have been here, we have seen, we have known. And in that knowing we have made the universe whole.